Hello, and welcome back to Goalie Interference.
Hi.
There, he did it. He does it every time. Your high is much less aggressive than mine. I come to you live from Joe's Stone Crab, Seafood and Stone Crab, and Prime Steaks, where my father is in town, and we're having a nice dinner at Abby's restaurant. And I am still here because I don't rest, Mike.
No,
I don't rest when it comes to talking about the Golden Knights. I'm not going to miss goalie interference. I cut my dinner short. I've eaten 4 ounces of my 8-ounce steak, and I'm going to go eat the rest when we're done here. But we need to talk about the Golden Knights. Of course, you are Mike McKenna from Daily Faceoff. Who was in the news yesterday, Daily Faceoff? Were they ever in the news of the Golden Knights? We're not going to start with that first. Instead, we're going to start with positive news. The Golden Knights kicked the shit out of the San Jose Sharks again, 11 times straight, 15 times in a row getting a point. I think that is absolutely pathetic, and I would probably fold the franchise if I were the San Jose Sharks. I cannot believe they lost an 11th game in a row. However they did, my question to you is, the Sharks sucked, but the Golden Knights scored 3 times. The Golden Knights played a quote-unquote Pete DeBoer type game, as he called it. Pete DeBoer called it a Pete DeBoer type game. Loved that.
Oh, yeah.
Do you feel like they've turned the corner a little bit? Do you feel like that was heading in the right direction? Or are we saying here result doesn't necessarily match how much better they need to play to start getting to a point where they actually have turned the corner?
Yeah, and they beat a terrible team. Like the Sharks were awful
and they played bad too. Yeah.
And I mean, you can look for moral wins on everything all you want, but I still saw things that made me nervous about the game. Like, yeah, it was a Pete DeBoer win. They kept chucking pucks to the blue line, getting their shots blocked. Like, I couldn't.
Oh,
I'm telling you, midway through the second period, it was a 1-1 game, and it wasn't close. Like the Golden Knights were way better.
Yeah.
But I had the thought process thinking, man, like the Sharks might grease one out here if they score a goal somehow, some way, because it was, I mean, every shot for the Golden Knights was getting blocked in the slot. They weren't able to get through. They really only were good on the rush.
Transition, yep.
And that's a very Pete DeBoer game for this team. So was it? Yeah, absolutely. But now were there things to be happy about? Hey, man, the Misfits were great. Like that line was really good.
Division, they're going to be great. Anytime they play the Pacific, they kill them.
Yeah, they have to be great. But they didn't, they looked pretty good against Colorado, and then they went to sleep for 30 seconds or a minute and a half. Like
they forced the issue. They forced it, and they made a turnover. They did exactly what Colorado's been doing against Vegas. They gave up a goal, and you lose the game. You're not as good as them right now.
Nope, they're not, and nobody is in the league right now. I mean, there's things to be happy about from this past week. Getting White Cloud back definitely helps. I'm happy he's in the lineup. Realistically, I think Brett Howden in limited minutes keeps showing pretty well for the fourth line. It's fine, but I'm just concerned, man. I had this epiphany the last day or two that with the number of bodies that are missing, if they don't end up back in the lineup, if Pacioretty and Stone end up back in the lineup by playoff time or before that, like this club could flame out first round. That's the epiphany I had.
I thought you were going to go epiphany of like they're not even going to make the playoffs. And
no, I don't think that's the case.
There, are we?
No, I don't think that's the case. I think no matter what, they've got enough to get there, especially in that division. Yeah, exactly. And like LA, I like, but I still don't think LA is like for real. Like they're not Calgary. But I don't know, man. Like I'm nervous. Like losing games to Arizona.
That was not good. See, for me, like the last game, there's not a lot going on in the offensive zone. I think that's going to continue to be a problem, but I would hope that they'll get better on that when Eichel gets more comfortable, get more chemistry with the lines. I can live with that. It was defensively that I was happy with. Like that was much better.
Oh yeah. I'll agree with you on that 100%. I mean, that was probably the easiest game Lehner's had I've watched.
100%.
If it wasn't, it was top 3 easiest games he's had as a Golden Knight. Now, I mean, San Jose actually started to challenge a little bit late, very late in the game.
When they pulled their goalie, which they should have done 6 minutes earlier, but
yeah. So like, it wasn't a chance for, it was actually a great game for Robin to have coming back into the lineup.
It was definitely,
and I liked this game, like, especially that he made some rather judicious decisions when, of course, San Jose only had 1 player going to the net, not 2 or 3. And, Robin takes a little bit of ice and he plays a little bit aggressively when he knew he could. Like, I thought his reads were on and they were smart, but he wasn't challenged at all beyond those. So that was a good game for him to have, because it's not going to get any easier. I mean, that was a light stretch, and now you're facing a lot of hockey, even against, a not as strong of a schedule as some of these teams in the Metro or in the East, but you're still going to be facing Boston soon. You're still going to be facing, Pittsburgh's coming in, and
a lot of road games too.
Yeah. And there's some junker teams in there, but you got to get through a week and a half road trip. So
with a lot of travel, it's not an easy road trip. You're going Buffalo and Philly, and it goes to Winnipeg at one point. It's not going to be easy. I just thought Colorado game, like Arizona game, nightmare. Not good. They weren't all that good defensively. They weren't very good on the rush. They weren't good in the offensive zone. Like, let's just pass that. Okay, that is result and process is shit. Then Colorado, the process started to look good. It started to look like this is what they did to beat Colorado a year ago. This is what you want to see. Result doesn't match it. Okay, that team's really effing good. You're not as good at the moment. Okay, fine. The last game, like, defensively, the process was excellent. Like, defensively, it looked like last season. That team won the Jennings Trophy. That's exciting to me. So that part, I'm starting to say, okay, I am starting to feel like they're turning a corner. But tomorrow is super important in my mind. Not in, are they going to make the playoffs? Not in, are they going to get 2 points? In, can they keep playing good hockey? Can they keep playing the style of hockey that's going to help them actually win games? We'll see.
Yeah, and against a team in Boston that's been playing pretty good lately. And I would expect Boston to have Swayman in net. Olmark played the last game. Swayman has been red hot, man. Like 5 goals against in his last 6 games. 2 shutouts in that mix, a 34-shotter last time out. Like,
and didn't Boston just blow a game that they should have definitely not blown?
Yeah, that was last night.
That's not good. Like, that's not what Vegas wants coming in. You don't want a pissy team, and that's what you're getting.
Yeah, and even Boston's got, that's a team that's probably going to be active at trade deadline. They've got some people that are, let's just say there's some inspiration, I guess, on that club. So I'm glad this next game's at home. I don't think being on the road would have been a good recipe to go right out after that. I think one more good game at home would really help. And obviously a back-to-back going to Anaheim's not a big deal, man. Like, you're up and down on the bird. You'll be there at midnight. It's no big deal. But yeah, I don't know, man. I have concerns. Like, God, the power play, man. Like, I'm sorry, dude. Like, I'm going to go on it right away, because bottom line, Jack Eichel, there I am, bottom line. Jack Eichel out there with Yevgeny Dadonov and Keegan Kolesar is a waste of Jack Eichel's time. And I mean that with the greatest amount of respect to Keegan Kolesar, who scored and played well. But, like,
that was a hell of a shot, by the way.
It was It was impressive because he adjusted to a pass that was really kind of in his feet, because Howden had to float it past that D. It didn't have to be perfect. I was impressed that Kolesar got it off from where
I couldn't believe how quickly he got it off. Because when I watched it live, I think it was the pass fooling me, because it was a sauce pass and because it did take a little while to get there. I thought, like, oh, maybe the goalie's way slow coming across on this. Then I watched it a number of different times. He got that thing on and off his stick in a hurry and put it exactly where it needed to go. Like, that was beautiful. That was like, damn, this guy's a third liner. This guy's a second liner. Like, do that, my man. But again, it's a transition goal, and, like, what are they doing in zone? But yeah, that power play. Oh my God, Evgeny Dadonov. Part of hockey is guys lifting your sticks. You are playing in the bumper in a power play. Like, they're going to lift your stick. It happened 3 times in a row.
He's not moving. That's the thing. Like, just because you're in the bumper area doesn't mean you don't move. Like, Brett Hull scored, I don't know how many goals in the NHL because he got to open space. Steven Stamkos gets to open space. Like, all those guys that had the one-timers with their feet planted, they know how to get to that open area. And it's just not there for him, man.
Nope.
I don't have any other way to say it at this point of the year. But I can't figure it out. Like, why won't you stick Eichel out there with, I mean, put him out there with Smith and Marchessault and Petro. Like, just load it up, man. Like, your PP sucks right now. Load up your 5 best players. That's what I think should happen. And have a couple flanks. You stick Smith on the other side. Let him have a one-timer if you need it. Petro up top. Eichel's working half wall. Like, just 5 best players, man. Because you can't expect Kolesar to distribute pucks from the goal line. That's a Mark Stone place on the ice. You know, that's a Patrick Kane place on the ice. It's a Kucherov place. Nicholas
and Mark
Backstrom.
Stone's not even great at it.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know I'm complaining here about it, but I just, these things make me nervous now at this stage of the season because we just don't know. Pacioretty said he's not close. And honestly, to me, it doesn't matter whether Janmark's in the lineup or not for this team. I think it's kind of here nor there. Yeah. But this team is constructed so top heavy that when you lose those big ticket players, man, you get stuck with the lower end. And that's with the risk you run when you have a team that's constructed this way with the salary cap. You miss 1 or 2 players, man, it's catastrophic. It's a lot different than a team that has a lot of middle-class citizens that can kind of fill the void there. That's actually Boston. Boston actually doesn't have – they have a lot of really friendly contracts that has allowed them to interchange parts when necessary.
It's just what's scary is, like, they're top-heavy and struggling because they're top-heavy when they're $9 million over the cap. What is this going to look like next year when they're not and they're missing 1 player? Like, it's going to feel like they're missing the 3 that they're currently missing right now. Like, this team that's playing right now, this may not be the team that we're looking at for the rest of this season, assuming guys get healthy and not close. Don't go nuts over that. That could mean anything. Not close could have been not close to playing last night, and he now is close to playing tomorrow. I don't know. He was the SpongeBob meme where he's looking down through the grid. That was him today at practice over there. I saw him. I took a picture. It's on the Twitter. Like, that's the concern for me is that this current team, they're literally their only 2 wins in the past month, basically, have been against San Jose, a team that cannot beat them no matter who they roll out. Everyone else they have lost to. And that's where tomorrow becomes a little bit more important to me because this is going to sound bad. I don't even care if they win. I need a buttoned up defense. I need buttoned up defensive game. And that was like why for me, despite the third person, I liked the Pete DeBoer style game, quote, Pete DeBoer. Weird, yes, but at the same time, his recognition to saying that's how we need to win, that's how they win the Stanley Cup. If the Golden Knights are going to win the Stanley Cup this season, they're going to do it by allowing 6 high-danger chances in an entire game. That's how they need to do it. They have not been that all season long. And as these players are in or out of the lineup, none of that should affect their defense. And to me, I don't know if they can do that against a Boston. We're going to find out tomorrow.
The hard part for this to quantify is that Tampa Bay Lightning have won 2 straight Stanley Cups, giving up 10 to 14 grade A chances against a game.
They also have the best goalie in the league.
His name is not Shesterkin, even though I just watched him give up 3 straight tonight against St. Louis.
David Perron, that we had it on in the restaurant. I was going nuts because my guy Perron scored again.
I actually saw David at dinner the other night. I walked in to have dinner with somebody who's in the NHL, but I had dinner with a friend of mine, and in walks Perron, and I was like, dude, what's up, man? You're coming here in the middle of a snowstorm? Yeah, just me and the wife having a dinner. So
guys,
we've known each other since, we went to Blues training camp 2007. That was his first one. And David Perron shows up with white skates, and Andy Murray, who was the old school coach, like spray painted him black. He's a show off with white skates. And it's just
there's a hell of a story on the Walsh podcast about that very training camp that I can't do it justice. But that training camp, he basically forced Tibbs' way onto the team. Come on, let's go. Cody's asking. Drop the name. Come on, do it.
Hey, man, I got goalie partners everywhere. Don't worry about it. It was actually supposed to be a bigger party than it was. And unfortunately, the snowstorm prevented that from happening. So
we don't know what that is. It's 70 here right now.
Yeah. So, well, you know what? It was 80 degrees in St. Louis today.
Yeah, well, it was 80 here.
Amazingly.
Yeah, speaking about goalies, guess what? This show is presented by the Jimerson Law Firm. Goalie Interference is presented by the Jimerson Law Firm. The Jimerson Law Firm is one of Las Vegas's preeminent law firms, specializing in high-stakes business, civil and family litigation. When winning matters, finally got one. Haven't been able to say that a lot. When winning matters, seek out the Jimerson Law Firm. On to the other goalie topic. Robin Lehner calling, do we call Saravalli your boss, or how do I refer to Frank?
I suppose he actually is my boss.
Okay,
but my
so
teammate,
he called your boss Dr. Saravalli multiple times and was noticeably livid over that report. What do you take out of that?
I mean, I listen, I know Frank really well, and Frank doesn't run with anything that's not ironclad. So, dude, I don't know how to run with it other than I trust my guy.
Let me say this. Go ahead.
I think the proof will be if surgery happens for Robin Lehner at some point.
Yeah, right.
Whether it's 2 weeks, 2 months, or over the summer.
Here's what I don't
know.
I think the Golden Knights, for the now third time that Robin Lehner has been injured, and you could make an argument for fourth because he had shoulder surgery in the offseason, and that one was not actually missing games. They have been upfront about his injury one time of the four. Mm-hmm. It's the one that he said he was getting shoulder surgery. That's the one that he's had the easiest time dealing with. One other time he had a concussion. We had to have all of this, and he had to come out right when he was back and declare that he had a concussion, and it wasn't this, and it wasn't that, and all this. And then today, this time, or last night, he's immediately throwing back at Frank over that report because the Golden Knights are secretive about this on him. Okay, you want to be secretive about injuries? That's all you. But you need to understand that one of your players is not a secretive person. And he's a very important player in your franchise. I think moving forward, they should learn, let's be upfront with what his is so that he's not put in a bad position because of who he is, how vocal he is, what he's going to say when he comes back. I think they need to take the cue from their goalie here and say, look, if it's a shoulder injury, say it's a shoulder injury. We can't do undisclosed upper body. He'll be back at some point. Doesn't work. It doesn't work for him. It doesn't work for the fan base. It's not going to work for the organization. That's my take on what happened last night.
Yeah, man, we've agreed about this before. I just think it puts players in bad positions that this type of stuff happens. And I mean, last year, Robin had to stand up there and say, I had a concussion. And, you know, when people don't know, it leads you to draw conclusions and rumors start. And you've heard it, Ken. It's like, oh, well, he's been out for 2 months. Well, he must just be on the sauce again or something.
Yep.
Like, this is what people think, you know? And it's like, no, dude, he had a concussion, man. Like, this is a brain injury he's getting over, right?
I hate to back up the loony bin fans that are doing this because most people jump to it a little bit too early. However, in the last one, the concussion one, the discussion of what was going on and what we were getting from the organization, it actually would have matched up if they were saying, if they were hiding or trying to keep it under wraps that that's what was happening. What they were saying would have actually matched up. So like when you don't know and when they're not giving that information, and then that lines up when you don't even have to be a loony fan to go down that path. So to me, they just have to understand. And I think we're at the point we know Max Pacioretty, we're not going to get told what it is. And Max Pacioretty's going to come back and he's going to play and he's not going to say what it is. And that's going to be the end of it. That's fine.
Because that's already been a couple of his injuries.
But with Robin Lehner, who is in a different position, is a much different type of person, is in a much different position in this organization and in the fan base, I think they need to learn, let's be upfront with him. Whatever's going on. If he wants to go on Twitter, last time he's been on Twitter is, anybody want to look that one up? Been a minute. I don't know what's going on there.
When was the last time anybody on the team was on Twitter? For anything other than a charitable event in town.
You're right. It's been a minute. So that's my last part.
Yeah. And listen, I had a conversation with former NHL GM about this. And so why do teams do this? Like, what's the reasoning for withholding information and stuff? He said, oh, to protect the player. Got to protect our players. We're protecting our players.
Not happening.
And I listen, I think the world of this person, but I disagreed with him on this. I think that in today's day and age, it puts you at a disadvantage as a player and puts you in a bad spot. And I also think there's going to be a massive amount of pressure on the NHL to start disclosing injuries from the betting standpoint. You look at these games, man. Like, it used to be tobacco money, alcohol money. It was every vice you could imagine. Well, what's the new vice that's legal to advertise with? It's gambling.
Yeah.
And
William Hill's on almost every game. Yeah,
it is. And man, like, if you don't know when a player's gonna be out of a lineup or what they're facing, it matters. So it'll be interesting. Somebody in the comments just tossed up, Mike, are you in St. Louis? Yes, I'm in St. Louis. So anyway,
here's another comment I wanted to take. VGK need an identity. What kind of team actually are they? I don't know right now. That's from Anthony.
You know what?
What are they?
This is actually kind of great research project for me for next week. I mean that wholeheartedly. So this is Anthony D that asked this, and I think I need to do research around the league, not asking the Golden Knights, but asking other teams what the Golden Knights' identity is. Because to me, when I watch, it's not what it used to be. It used to be a heavy team that rolled four lines and they were going to be in your face and they just kept coming in waves.
Hardworking was the word we usually heard. And I don't hear that much, and I don't see it either. And that's not to say they're not trying. It's just they're not a pain in the ass to play against anymore.
No. And I mean, like, I know you can. It's going to be really easy to praise Eichel because he's just so skilled and talented. Okay, like, he gets the puck out of stick in transition on the rush and he fires one off the bar. Like, yeah, you should expect that. The guy can rip the puck, man. He's a dynamo.
Yeah, but wait, before you go on that, we're going to put Jason up because look what happened when that happened. He shot one off the bar, right? And we have the Eichel Tower behind Jason. We got so excited. The Eichel Tower fell down. We were so pumped that we knocked the Eichel Tower over.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So
go ahead.
You're on, Jason. So
you're on mute, Jason. You got to.
I was going to say that's what happens when you have a 5-year-old and a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old who
was pumped.
He's expecting Eichel to score every night. So
we should have scored. He's wide open. Put it in, damn it.
It's easy. Just score.
I know. That's what I tell everybody.
Here's my point, though. Eichel's been a perimeter player in the zone because the Golden Knights have been a perimeter team in the zone.
It's what they are. That one shift, maybe I'll clip it tomorrow. The one shift, I was at the game, so I don't know. Do you know the shift I'm talking about? You guys know the shift I'm talking about? It was they were going to the left, so it must have been the first period. It was late in the first period. The Golden Knights had the puck in the zone for, I don't know, 2.5 minutes. I guarantee you the broadcast was praising how amazing of a shift it was. I didn't watch it. I was at the game, but I can guarantee you they got 0 shots on goal. They shot the puck into shins 4 times, 2 of which in the high slot, which the guy was right in front of him, shot it into shins, got the rebound. And the biggest part that bothered me of all of it is I would call it, like in basketball, that's what they call it, a skip pass. So if you just pass it around the outside, you go 1 to 1 to 1 to 1, right? This guy to this guy to this guy to this guy. If you do a skip pass, you're skipping someone. Usually it's through the middle. Not a single pass went to someone past another Golden Knights player. 0 in 2 minutes. Like, Sheng Peng was in town watching the game, and he was like, I thought they defended that great. And I'm like, I'm going to have to shoot myself because they had 2.5 minutes and Sheng Peng thought they defended it well. What is going on out here?
Sheng from the covers the San Jose Sharks. They were
Everyone knows who Sheng Peng is. That's like saying who's Wayne Gretzky. It's the same. You don't have to describe who Sheng Peng is. Everyone knows.
Good. Good. Thank you. I'm just a lonely old goalie. Dude, they were in the zone forever.
Like, unbelievable.
But they accomplished nothing. They got 4 shots blocked, and Reimer probably hurt himself during that sequence for all we know.
Yeah.
And I actually think Sawchenko came in and played pretty well for them, gave him some good minutes. But
can a goalie play bad against the Golden Knights? Is that possible?
Can a goalie play bad, you said?
Did you watch the Arizona game?
I did. Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah,
he was horrific.
Uh,
He was all over the place.
Wedgwood always plays way outside his crease.
Oh,
well, that's
okay.
why
Maybe
he hasn't
I'm not
been
used to him
consistent.
how he plays.
Like Wedgwood's a seat of the pants goalie that if he's feeling it, he can play. But when things don't go his way, it's tough. But
I'll ask the question again. Can you play poorly as a goalie against this team?
Sure. Oh yeah. I mean, everybody has an off night, and it can happen. You can still win a game, but I mean, you need your D to block shots on this team, and that's what they do. Like,
I mean, Millard's stopping shots in practice.
Yeah,
Millard was actually fun. It's funny to watch Millard in practice. They got to get him a real jersey. Earth to Golden Knights. Get him a real jersey.
They haven't given the poor guy a practice jersey?
No, he's got this weird gray jersey. It has like number 50 or some shit on the back. It's so weird.
Oh, man.
And it looks terrible. Like, just get the guy a real jersey. Come on.
They got to help Mallard out. If you're going to hop out there, man, hook the dude up.
Well,
that makes me sad.
What it looks like to me is like, and we coach Little League, Jason and I, Spring Valley Yankees. Let's go. We're going to the ship this year. It looks like the kind of jersey where they like give you a box of jerseys from like extra small, which is number 1, up to like XXXL, which is number 50. And that one was just left over. And they're like, Millard can wear it.
Yeah,
that's what that jersey looks like. It's horrible.
I'm shocked. I thought it would have been a Brandon Wheat Kings jersey, but
it's
cool. He gets to hop in, man. That was honestly some of the most fun I had was those days that I got to practice with the team. And it's actually great insight for, what you do as an analyst or as a host, anything that's associated with a broadcast, to actually be on the ice and kind of get a feel for what that's like. It's unique. But
let me
buy
ask
the
this
guy
question,
a goddamn jersey.
Yeah. Having been in there, because I was asked this last night, are the Golden Knights a bad shooting team?
They're not great.
I mean,
I think the answer is yes.
Well, and in their current iteration of not having much talent in the lineup, yeah. And also William.
Just Pacioretty, like Stone's not an elite shooter. It's just Pacioretty.
Pacioretty's an elite shooter. Pacioretty,
Marchessault's in the lineup.
Yeah.
And has
been. Missing Pacioretty makes a difference. Like Janmark can't shoot. He's not a great shooter. Like there are guys that don't finish. But like Will Carlson, man, where's his shooting gone? Like, and I'll tell you where it's gone is he's not getting shots like he used to.
I mean, I think it's possible that I'm so used to bad shots that I'm overrating the Keegan Colasar shot. I don't think I am. I thought that was beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, you put it on net, things can happen. Reimer, I thought that was a bad goal, honestly. I thought Reimer got the laziest push on that goal. And I think the reason why, though, is because the pass wasn't perfect. It wasn't like directly in the wheelhouse of Colasar, that he ended up shooting it out of his feet. And because that changed the angle by a foot or two, which probably left Reimer a little shy of the destination of where he needed to get to.
Have we ever talked about sliding defensemen?
No, we never have.
Because that was one of it. That was I hate sliding defensemen at the NHL level. You want to teach your 9-year-olds to slide? Fine. You want to teach your 14-year-olds to slide? Fine. But I think an NHL player can bat a pass down if he's standing up. That's my personal belief. I think they're capable of doing it. I've seen them do it before. I don't like sliding defensemen. I think it takes yourself out of the play in multiple ways. Not only is it out of the play on the pass, because they can sauce it over, but I also think it takes you out of the play if there happens to be a rebound. You are laying against the sideboard sliding. As a goalie, what are your thoughts on the sliding defenseman?
It really only works if you're attacking a player, there's an element of surprise to it, and it's pretty late. If you do it early, you're exposed.
Yeah.
And I do think I would never want to take it out of somebody's toolbox, but I think if you start to go long body all the time, teams figure it out real quickly. And that's what you'll say, slide, long body. There's different terms for it.
I'm taking it out of the toolbox.
It can be an all or nothing.
You're not allowed to do it. You're on my team, not allowed to do it.
I liked it when I had guys who knew how to do it, but they were really smart about when. It was not automatic. Automatic is bad there. And even plays around the crease in the net. I played for teams years ago that they tell the D to get on one knee and seal a lane. And like,
I don't mind
all that. all that does to me really is take your mobility away as a D and take your stick away. And
what
your
if you don't
stick's your
have any
greatest
mobility? Because that was the Derek Englund special, and he was excellent at it because he didn't have mobility.
Well, there you go. But like your stick's your greatest weapon. Like you want to have your stick in your hands at all time if you can. And if you don't have that, you're purely just a blocker. So, Engo, and when Engo would do it, a lot of times it's on the kill, it's deep, like it's face-off zones. Like that was his role, dude, and he was excellent at it. And that's not everybody else. And the game's even since he retired moved towards much more active defensemen that need to have the puck at all times, especially under Pete. Like you better get the puck and go, man, or you're not going to play if you're a defenseman.
When you watch McNabb do it, I think he's got a pretty good skill of he has that size, and like you said, he doesn't use it all the time, and when he does, it's late. So he's basically forcing the puck to go into the corner, and then he's able to get his body back up and the team aligned correctly. But I know why Ken doesn't like it because, like you said, it doesn't work all the time, and you're out
capable.
Of position.
Like you're capable. That's all I'm saying. The guy is capable. If they sauce a pass, if I go to practice and sauce a pass 15 times, the defenseman's going to knock it down 14 times. I think they're that good at hockey. That's all I'm saying. My steak's getting cold. I'm out of here.
They're not going to. Hey, see ya. Good work.
Seriously,
they're not going to knock down 14 out of 15, but they are better than people.
They are going to knock down that many. Well, all right. I'm leaving. I've got to go. Good
you
stuff.
Leave it to us. We got you
guys take the job. Good night.
We got you. Goodbye.
All right, Mike. So, we could actually have some, adult conversation here now.
Well, that's half the fun of this for everybody is that Ken and I get to battle at times and go back and forth, and you got the Ken versus Kenny show, and it's great fun, man. But like I appreciate talking the minutia of defense and how to do that, and like I am still optimistic about this team, but I really said it off the top of the here that I'm starting to get this impression that there's nervousness here, I think, because you're getting closer. I don't think the team can do much at deadline. Like, Jason, that's one question I have for you. Like, and both of us, let's ham it up here. Like, even if the Golden Knights wanted to add at the deadline, can they do that? Like, can they add? Like, is it just purely money in, money out, or losing money? Like, it's hard to see where they could really improve this roster even if they wanted to.
And realistically, they're just going to continue to kick the can down the road. I mean, they don't have anything in the cupboard. I mean, yeah, people will mention Brossoit and people will mention some other players, but we know, Mike, and you specifically, you've seen younger players, prospects kind of not pan out here in Vegas. And really, I don't think there's anybody in the top 100 prospects that Vegas has, maybe other than Brossoit, but that the league would really consider them, stocked well. However, if they have that opportunity to add, this club, they're really aggressive. And like you said earlier, they're a little nervous. Maybe there's some doubt creeping in. And the rumors that they would reach out to Montreal. Montreal would take some of that, a bad contract or something like that. You got to think that they're going to be active. And that scares me a little bit because who do they add, right? Let's just say they add a forward to make up some of that lost offense. Well, now you're talking about a brand new team come game one of the postseason, because now you're going to be getting Stone back, maybe Pacioretty, maybe Martinez. And then you had that offenseman that you went out and got at the deadline and you probably paid a lot of money for.
Yeah. That's what makes me nervous too, because your chemistry is a big deal, man. Like, I know we can try to fantasy hockey this thing all you want, but you need to have some continuity. Like, Eichel needs line mates. And are his line mates really going to be Dodonov and Stevenson?
I hope not, because I agree with you. It's a waste of his time when he's out there with players, the depth players.
Yeah. And I think you can put Stevenson with him, but man, put Marchessault up with him. Just put somebody who can hammer the puck, like anyone that's right-handed on an off wing that can get rid of the thing. And that's where I have concern, because you always think about the misfits. They're the go-to, right? They'll take all the draws in defensive zone if you need to for Carlson. They'll take matchups, but you can't keep running Eichel out with a grab bag with these other two out. And the thing is, we just don't know how long they are. We don't know if Pacioretty's next week. We don't know if Stone's 2 months. And team probably doesn't either. But that's why I think you need to forge a true number one line at this stage, because right now the number one line is a misfit line to me. Like, I don't think it's the Eichel line. And you need to have an absolute horse in this league, especially if you're paying that much for it. Because you can't listen. I love Will Carrier. I love how he works, but like even him on a third line is pushing it, you know. And are you going to bump Nick Waugh up? How many times are we going to bump Nick Waugh up and see middling results? Like Nick Waugh's an NHL player. He's an NHL centerman. He's probably a third line centerman. He's really good fourth line centerman. So,
and the misfit line, like you mentioned, I mean, it's almost like if something's breaking, let's make sure we go back to them. And I understand that pressure. They've earned that pressure to be out there in big situations. Like you mentioned, the chemistry, they've had chemistry for five seasons. However, I don't think that's the line that can win you 3 series, possibly 4 in the postseason. And even Pete DeBoer said it today. They went out and got Eichel because of the fact that they needed an ace. They needed a number one center. And if they can't develop that number one line that you're talking about in the regular season, how do they expect them to come together, against probably a pretty good team in round one?
Oh, yeah. They're going to face somebody good. I mean, even if it's LA, that's still a good team that's matched up well against them this year. So, I'm blatantly honest. I'm concerned with Will Karlsson this year. Like, I know it was a good game against San Jose, great, but he hasn't been anywhere offensively that I think the team needs. And that's a hole right now, because it was supposed to be this great combination down the middle. You got Eichel 1, Karlsson 2, and you want to put Karlsson out for defensive zone draws. I'm happy to do that all day long, but man, 1 goal in his last 20 games for a guy who put 43 in. That's a lot different than Tampa, who's got a fourth line with a guy with 15 goals and Corey Perry, and then Pat Maroon with another 10,
Yeah, I mean,
different.
If Vegas were able to get that production on the bottom line, we would actually see a rolling of 4 lines. I know that's one of the most used kind of cliche that a coach likes to use, is that, his preference is to roll out 4 lines. I think for now, Golden Knights fans, you, of course, you've known forever. And I think people covering the team, we understand that that's what coaches would like to do. They just they can't always do it. And it's because of the level of play down in the bottom 6. Unfortunately, Tampa, who the Golden Knights compare themselves a lot to, it's a huge mismatch on that bottom 6.
Yeah, it is. I mean, even look at you can look at St. Louis, man. That team's got 3 solid lines, solid, And again, it's because they've got pretty workable contracts. They don't have anybody that's that heavy. Tarasenko's, I think he's almost $8 million or so. And that's kind of as high as you're looking on that club for a lot of them. And
Parayko's probably around the same?
5.5, 6 defenseman. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, and Justin Falk's making big money too, but you're not making Pietrangelo money.
Right.
You're not making Mark Stone money, Jack Eichel money, and those extra $2-3 million add up for those types of guys. So let's look at the comments here. Now everybody's playing the game of where do we put everybody. Somebody asked, is Karlsson the new Jonathan Cheechoo? No, I think Chris Kreider might be the new Jonathan Cheechoo. And I think Chris Kreider plays for the New York Rangers, and I think that for a long time this year he was leading the NHL in goal scoring. He was bound for a regression, and he's still a great player, but he's not going to lead the league in goals scored. But it's a great point. Remember that season Cheechoo had? This was 2006-7 in San Jose. Holy cow, he was unstoppable. And then he just fell off the map. So, but what you're saying about DeBoer is right. DeBoer is not Turk. Gallant loved to roll 4 lines. Absolutely did that. And even I think DeBoer was good about it when he trusts his fourth line. But right now, I mean, even when he had the meat grinders, when he had Nosa, Carrier, and Reeves, he'd trot them out at the start of the period, and he'd put him out whenever the team scored to be the next shift after. And that was kind of it,
Yeah. But he gave him that moment, and I think they worked
Yes.
hard for him, right?
I agree with you. I do. And I know we don't have Ken on, so this is perfect timing for us to bag on it. But like, I mean, I hosted Sirius XM this week, and David Backus was on with us for a full hour, and he is convinced that Vegas just doesn't have the grit to do it anymore. He thinks that missing Ryan Reeves is a huge aspect. He believes that not having that fourth line bearing down on you, breathing down your neck in a game gives the team a completely different complexion. And I guess my point is it doesn't need to be Revo. It doesn't need to be. But man, like Jonas Rönnbjerg can skate, but he's not going to scare anybody. And I know he's a fill-in at this point too, but like whether you're talking about Nick Waugh or Howden or Patrick or other guys that have filled in for third lines, Amadio, those guys are all offensive players and they're not heavy.
Yeah. And again, I don't want to, they're pros. So they face the hits and all the physicality, and I don't. So I don't want to call any of them a wuss, but I do see a lot of skating away and a lot of not engaging, knowing that, maybe now I understand some of them are smart players and they don't want to take those penalties. I get it. But usually when you're in a scrum and they're going to pair two guys off, each from one team, and they're going to even out the penalty. I do worry about, and it's funny that Backus brings that up because he is exactly what you're talking about. He's not Ryan Reeves. He was a guy that could score, right? He had skill, but that wasn't his game. He didn't become a leader. He didn't become who he was based off skill. It was his hard work, his grit, getting in the face of a lot of players, protecting his teammates. I'm sure you saw it much more than I did over, television, but
yeah, really close.
That is the type of guy I don't think the Golden Knights have. And, if they were to add something at the deadline, maybe that is somebody that they would like to, I don't know, maybe he would fit that role in the bottom six. The question is, do you want to overpay for somebody like that?
Yeah, I think for me, it's, I still think that Nick Cousins was a missed opportunity with the team. It didn't work. I don't know why it didn't, but I also didn't think he got a chance to really do his thing. And
it was a quick hook.
It was like, it kind of had a 5-10 game, cameo there. And, here's a good comment, missing Connor Garland. Now there's a guy I'd love to see in a Golden Knights uni. That guy would be Connor Garland would be a folk hero in Vegas. Cassandra, great comment. And I like his game. The only problem with Garland is that he plays to the edge and he gets hurt a lot because he's always on that edge and he's small and his head's in the way. But that's the type of player, the sandpaper, and I looked in Nashville, who they've been on a slide recently, but man, they completely changed their entire identity this year because of a guy who was playing in the ECHL a year and a half ago, and Tanner Jeannot. Like one guy from Saskatchewan came in, starts fighting and scoring, and people follow that. And I don't see that with the Golden Knights. When's the last time they had a fight that wasn't Keegan Kolesar?
I think Carrier had a little bit of a scrap, but even Carrier doesn't really get into it.
I can't remember Carrier ever fighting.
I for some reason, maybe it wasn't considered a fight, but they were scrapping it up a little bit, and he got paired up with somebody else to take a 2 minute. So, okay. Hutton, Christian B just mentioned Hutton. Again, a guy that can throw, but is anybody scared of Ben Hutton? And does he do enough on the ice? And is he on the ice enough to really make an impact with his physicality?
No. And I'm not advocating for the team to go out and be slap shot on the ice and fight every shift and have line brawls. I just think, man, that if you play hard and play to the edge, you're probably going to fight once a year or twice a year. I mean, even Ryan Johansson fought for Nashville in the outdoor game. Like that guy he hardly has a pulse, and he fought, So I've always felt that. Pacioretty got mentioned here. Pacioretty chased around a guy on Buffalo the last game that they played in Vegas. Remember that, Jason?
Yeah.
Holy hell.
I forget who the player was, but you're right. That's what you're talking about, though. If you play that way, you're going to get into at least one fight a year, and Pacioretty doesn't shy away from that.
No, he doesn't. And Yeah, Lehner will fight anyone. There's a great comment. That's true. And Lehner will kill anybody. He's so tough, man. I've seen him fight. But I just think playing to that edge, those things happen. And I haven't seen emotions spill over in a while in a Golden Knights game. And when you start to pinpoint teams that it might happen against, it won't happen against San Jose really any longer. Like they tried to push back at the end of the game. No surprise. They're getting their ass kicked. And now it's time to make a statement. So VL is going to slash somebody. And like, dude, VL, we get it. You fought Chara, man. You don't have to go out there and prove your worth anymore. Like, we get it, dude. But I think that's missing a little bit. And you get the playoffs. You don't have to fight, but man, you got to play hard. And you got to have teams that are they fear you. You need them to fear you. And I remember last year, that series with Minnesota, there was a palpable tension to that series because it was a hard fought battle, man. Really.
Foligno and Greenway were not afraid to mix it up. And they wanted to get the message through that they were as physical as Vegas, and they weren't afraid of them.
Yes. And that's where teams are going to know that with Vegas in playoffs. Like, I mean, even LA will come in and Doughty will come in and try to run. He'll do his thing. Like Calgary, I don't like the way this team matches up against Calgary with that. Like Lucic, Coleman, Lucic, like there's a lot there. And like even Kachuk will drive him crazy.
And that's a Suter type team where, they're tough as nails and they're going to keep coming at you. I remember season 2, the series, the 7-game series against the Sharks. At the time, Gerard Gallant had said, listen, the first 2 games, it's not going to look quite like the rest of the series. And you could tell right away. And we talked to Reeves and other players after the series, after game 1, and they said our directive was to get Erik Karlsson as deep in his own zone and hit him as many times as we can. And they did the same thing against Quinn Hughes the year after. And then the opponent kind of not fell into it, but they absorbed it and they understood it and they were able to work around that. I don't even think Vegas can do that in the first 2 games of anybody this postseason.
No, I don't see him pushing anybody out of the building. I see them trying to outskill everybody at this stage. That's where they are, is to just put your head down, play hockey, play strong defensively, go score goals. That intimidation factor is not the same. It's not. But I don't know. I don't know where it comes from.
And it's not just Reeves, because I've seen Pietrangelo. Pietrangelo does a good job of, well, let's be honest. He's
undercover nasty.
Right. And you see it. You see it in big moments, like when the game means something. Nobody's getting to Lehner. Nobody's getting to Bressois. Bressois. Yeah. There are times that his one of his teammates is being picked on or egged or whatever, and Pietrangelo is always there. I think he probably, and you would know, picked that up in St. Louis from guys like Backes.
Yeah, Backes set the tone there. That was a really hardworking team in St. Louis. And I mean, I think even for young defensemen that are growing up during that era, Petro's only a couple years younger than I, and I'm 38. I think he's 33, 4 at this. I'm not sure. He grew up watching Chris Pronger, who's the meanest son of a bitch ever, ever.
He was a whaler.
Yeah. I mean, this guy was just vicious, man. And people, even teammates will tell you he wasn't necessarily great to play with, but God, did he get results, and that was real. But I think Petro, and we actually just got this comment, I think if anybody with Stone being out this much, it's kind of become Petro's team. From the number of minutes that he lugs in all situations, power play, kill, his experience factor, it matters. But this is another thing that that Backes and I talked about the other day, was just how, in his perspective of being a captain in the NHL, Backes was, it's pretty weird to come into a new locker room, even a year or 2 out, when you were a captain, you're no longer, but you're still supposed to be a leader, but you aren't the leader. And there can be a real feeling out process to that. And right now, the hard part, I think, is that they don't really have the deputies like they had. They don't have Alec Martinez right now. He's out. Stone's out. You still got Riley Smith. who is probably the conscience of the team in some ways.
I mean, he's as level-headed as you get.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a great foil for Jonathan Marchessault,
right?
He is not the face of the team. He will not be the captain of the team. Like I hear this a lot on social, that they believe that he is like the heart and soul of the club and everything. And I can understand why people think that, because he's an original misfit and he's passionate and all that. Marshy's not going to be your captain, man. And
No.
end of story. Like, he's not,
Maybe
dude.
Too passionate for it, actually.
Yeah, like he was your annoying little brother when we played together, like petulant kid, and he's had such an amazing career and he's such an awesome dude. But it's not that swagger of being a captain. So I'm kind of curious to see where Zach Whitecloud ends up down the road. Like, you give him 2 or 3 years, to me, he's somebody who'd be wearing a letter eventually in this organization, because you think he's going to be a long haul. I can't imagine that he's going anywhere being a Manitoba boy and everything else. Cap hits good for the next however many years, those things.
Yeah, he's seemed to connect well with the front office, obviously his Manitoba days, but they offered him a deal that Tampa wouldn't when he was a free agent out of college. And I think it was guaranteed money. So he felt a little bit of loyalty to the Golden Knights. He took their second deal, and I think it worked out really well for both of them. And I agree with you. He's one of those you need a guy, and we've heard it so many times about captains, that they're not always your best player. Like Doughty, for instance. Doughty might be their most overall skilled player over the past 10 years. But he's not he's not level-headed. He's very passionate. And really, you don't want him to go chop it up with refs when you have a guy like Kopitar, who's very balanced, and he can go over and have an explanation with the referees. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think the Golden Knights were probably 1 year away, one off season away from handing the captaincy to Alex Pietrangelo. In my opinion, it's his team. It's probably because of the amount of time that he's played since he's been here, as opposed to Stone and his injuries. Not taking anything away from Stone, but Pietrangelo understands this game, understands how to win, understands the nuances of the game, when to talk to the ref, when not to talk to the ref, when to pick on something, when to, shove an elbow, whatever, the timing. And I also think that his play on the ice is a great show of leadership as well. So in my opinion, and I don't know if this will ever be true, but I think Pietrangelo will be your C, and Stone and Eichel at some point will be your alternates.
I don't see it changing unless Stone misses significant time. He's the captain, that'll remain, and he is still the leader in there. But I think that what you said is really prescient about the timing. If Petro and Stone had come in together, or Petro was in advance of Stone, I think it's Petro's wearing a C. I mean, I know both those guys. I've been in locker rooms with them, and I think Stone was the perfect choice. And I think Petro could have been as well. But it's interesting because really, Ryan O'Reilly was kind of the undercover captain in St. Louis, like deputy dog, right in the same vein as Petro for those players. And, this is kind of a similar deal, I think, between Stone and Petro, where you've got two guys that are really right there. But man, like, if Stone keeps missing time, you lose that. Like, he's still your captain, but it hasn't been for that long. It's not like Stamkos, who was the captain of Tampa for 7 years or whatever,
Right.
You start to kind of lose that.
I guess sort of that's where I was heading, where if we expect Stone, and let's be honest, he's got 5 years left on this deal, he's going to miss time. I mean, if you have back issues, it's going to be continuous back issues. As you're getting older, he's going to miss time. And that would be where my theory would come through, is if he's not playing much, or if he's out for a year, or even, 50, 60 games. So obviously we don't want that to happen. But one question for you, and how many times have you been into a locker room where 4 guys have been a captain before? And I'm not saying that egos, in the locker room are getting in the way. I wouldn't say that, because frankly, we don't know for sure, since we haven't been in the locker room since COVID. So we don't get that feel, right? But you got to think at times that Pietrangelo is saying to himself, I could lead this. I should be the captain. Or maybe even Pacioretty when he was not, passed over, but when they chose Stone as the captain over Pacioretty. And now you have Eichel. So Eichel doesn't have a letter and he goes from C to nothing. I mean, how much does that hurt chemistry or locker room presence?
I think it probably helps Eichel. I think it takes the pressure off of him. But I don't think you can ever have enough people that have the experience of being a captain. Because the ones that actually are a captain understand what it's like to then relinquish it and still lead without having to have it. Because a lot of times when you get somebody after they've been a captain, let's face it, it's later in their career. Like Petro's later in his careir. You get over 30.
Like Bergeron.
Yeah, you get over 30, you're later in your career. And it's like you've had your moment, but you still know how to filter in when you need to, if they're the right personality. Okay. Like there's still some guys that can't let it go. Like I played with one guy who in the NHL, he thought he was the captain and should be the captain at least, right? Thought he's the best player on the team, would have been the right age, everything else. He was not the captain. And he'd stand up and speak endlessly and everybody'd roll their eyes and be like, oh, here he goes again. When we knew who the real captain was. The problem was that the real captain, and neither of them had captaincy. Like we had just assistants. The real problem is that the guy who everybody knew should have been the captain was stunted by it. Like he was afraid to step on the other guy's toes. He was respectful. He didn't want to get involved and be bigger than the other person and hurt us as a team because we had no voice. And that's what happens when you get two guys that haven't ever been but think they should. I think it's actually easier to have players on the backside of their career that have done it before, rather than somebody who gets traded like mid. Like imagine trading your captain like Eichel and he comes in and thinks he wants to be the guy. Like he knows he's not going to be the guy, and that's a relief for him, man, for sure. I think it makes things easier.
But when you pay somebody that much, eventually you want him to take on that responsibility of at least being an alternate. So maybe let's just say, for instance, Riley isn't back with the team next year. There is a possibility to give Jack that A. And I don't know if it's maybe premature or if it's something that you want to say, listen, you're not a rookie anymore. You're 25, 26. You've played countless hockey games. You were a captain. Now it's probably time that you become a leader on our team. And again, he could be aided the fact that he does have other captains on the team and can help him. One thing you mentioned, and it kind of connects with some of the things that Pacioretty had to deal with in Montreal, where he was the captain, but there was another big voice, and it sort of impacted the job that Max could do as the captain. And frankly, it hurt their team. And that's why both PK and Max moved on eventually, because there wasn't a great chemistry. And nobody really blames it on Max, but he didn't go out of his way to shut down PK's advancement, I guess. And, PK's a loud, he's a popular player. He's a very, popular figure in the league. And I think that he probably impacted Max's job, but not positively either.
Yeah. And I think, Max is another one I look at. It's probably like super happy to not be captain any longer after all that pressure in Montreal. Like you need somebody who's hungry for that responsibility.
And Stone, and now that you brought up Stone earlier as being the right guy, that's it. It was his time to be able to be a leader, and it was the right time too.
There was a hunger for it. And what you said earlier about Petro, like he needed a ramp for it to be the right time to even see if it was coming in after the letdown of winning a Stanley Cup and going somewhere else. That's different. Yeah. It's weird.
So let's talk about, you've been on clubs before that are in the Golden Knights situation right now, right? They're a club that obviously should make the postseason, but they're stumbling a little bit. Now they have 2 full months of hockey after having only 7 games in February, right? Is this something, if you were on this team and if you're in the locker room, how confident are the guys? Are there more questions than confidence at the moment?
Man, I think in the back of their heads, they're all starting to wonder a little bit. because they haven't been on a slide like this in a long time, but they can always fall back on the team just always have gotten through it before. There's no other way to say it. But I mean, they went 1-4-1 recently, which was no joke, against good teams. And I think that you can sit up there and say, we're confident, we believe in each other, we believe in our coaches, we believe in everything, we're good. I think in the back of your head, you're still thinking, man, we're missing a lot of bodies and we haven't been able to beat these good teams. I think there's a fear. I think deep down inside, the Golden Knights probably know that they might not be able to get where they want to with the way the roster is and the way they've played against better teams. So I don't know if it takes away your confidence that much, but I think it's a real feeling that you have, and it's hard to shake that feeling when things start to go sideways in a game. Like a game against Arizona, you lose. It's like, there it is. Why aren't we winning this? And you can say all the right things. So,
is there a fear in this locker room specifically that if they don't win, they're gone, or their window is up? All these elements that, the misfits, for instance, let's be honest, are all three of them going to be back next year? Is there more pressure because of that?
I wonder how delayed that effect is, because they've seen all their buddies, not all, but they've seen a lot of their friends get traded away. And I can't really judge it. I can't tell if they're, nobody's safe, like I've been on teams where we've literally jokingly said, no one's safe because people are just getting dealt left and right. And I think that that's kind of, at this point, just the accepted reality of being a Golden Knight. Is that, hey, you're going to enjoy this while you're here. You just don't know how long it's going to last. Don't go open up in any bars or restaurants and expecting them to stick around for a while.
Yeah, hopefully Tuck still gets some sort of residual from his bar there that he connected with the rest of the guys. But I don't know. I guess I look at it and say that, they know the atmosphere. And I think you even said it a few weeks ago that free agents, guys are willing to take the risk to come here because they know how good this club is and they know how well the facilities are and how well they're treated as players.
They're treated phenomenal when they're there. Absolutely.
But when they're on the outside looking in, it's a little difficult because they feel like they were a key part and then they're shipped away.
Right.
There are a few, I would think that there are a few, though, guys that are untouchable, and it's not because of their play, it's because of their contracts.
Sure. Those exist. I mean,
selling somebody Lehner's deal with his injuries, it might be tough. Selling somebody Pacioretty's next year 1-year deal might be tough. Selling somebody on Stone's 9.5 over the next period of time because of injuries might be tough.
He's not going anywhere. You got to know move. They're not going anywhere. But
that's true.
I mean, Dodonov's would be hard to move. You'd have to pay somebody to take that $5 million with a year left on it. That's a hard contract to move in my eyes. Will Karlsson, you could probably move him 5.9 for a second line center, $5.9 million. I think you could move Will Karlsson. I know you can move Jonathan Marchessault at $5 million. That's a big value.
Sure could.
Like there are some. Like even Chandler Stevenson at 2.75. Boy, there's an attractive trade piece,
But in a way, isn't that what Vegas needs? They need more Stevensons where you were talking about St. Louis. The contracts were never so high that you couldn't have those mid-level to lower end salary guys that play above their salaries. Vegas doesn't have those guys, and I don't see it happening anytime soon.
I don't either. I don't. But thankfully, they got a lot of hockey coming up. I mean, these last couple of weeks have been like,
it's been
trudging through, and I mean, I'm excited to see what they do in this week. Like, you got a back-to-back series home. We were talking earlier, but it's Boston and then go to Anaheim. Boston's at home, then go to Anaheim. That travel doesn't matter.
Right.
So, you'd have to think Lehner is going to go against Boston, the better of the two teams. I would guess Brossoit this next night. Maybe. Ottawa, who's actually played some decent defensive hockey recently. I could see Ottawa just clogging up the middle and greasing one out. I could see it.
I could see that too.
So what do you think from this week? I mean, we got 4 games until next week's goalie interference.
Unfortunately, and I hate saying this, like last week, I actually brought up the whole trap Arizona game, and I wasn't necessarily convinced about it because I still don't think it was necessarily a trap game, but I didn't feel confident about them sweeping both. And realistically, I look at last weekend and I say, you know what, just throw it away. You know, it was 2 games. You played well again in Saturday's game against Colorado. You lost it. No big deal. You move on. Arizona, a couple times a year, you're going to lose those type of games, right? I think that Vegas is going to try. They're going to win 3 out of the 4. And I think what's going to happen is they're going to feel a little bit more confident. Maybe Lehner is one of the reasons why they have go 3 out of 4. And if that's the case, then you see a little bit more confident Lehner, which I think, let's be honest, I think the fan base needs to see that. I think the team needs to see that. And I think Lehner needs to see that.
Yeah, they need it over several games. It's got to be eye test. I've been saying this about Peter Mrazek in Toronto. I think the same way about Lehner in Vegas, that even if they win, it's got to look good. You know,
Yeah.
Like they can't have any clunkers. Like it's got to make them earn it. Even if it's 2 or 3, they've got to be good goals against, solid hockey. I think, man, I don't think they beat Boston. Swayman's going to be in net and they're sitting on it. I think Boston.
You mentioned it. He's been outstanding.
He has, and they're playing. And DeBrusk is pretty good on their top line now with Marchand and Bergeron. He's been red hot. I think they beat Anaheim. I think they beat Philly. My wild card here is I think I'm gonna just go wild guess here that Ottawa gets them.
Wow.
I know this is like
no, but you explain why. It's a good explanation. They could muck it up and just find that way to frustrate the Golden Knights into defeating them 3-2, 2-1.
I could see it. And that's like we're just throwing spaghetti at the wall. We do it all the time. So
right.
I just don't think that the Golden Knights are in a headspace and a lineup space, like lineup wise, to really rattle off 4 straight. I still don't see it yet. Whatever combination of this, I don't see them winning more than 3 games, I guess.
Right. And to be fair, that's okay with what they got on the ice right now.
It is. No, that's a great point, Jason. Like, I think right now it's get to playoffs. That's really your main goal, is get to playoffs. Like, you're not bothered about trying to win the division. You just need to get to playoffs because this is depleted lineup and your systems really need to come in. And everything Ken said about defensive hockey was 100% true. They need that. They need to play really strong, 10 or less grade A chances. That's your goal for all these games, 10 or less. And you can trust that they'll be able to lock down D, I think, if you do that.
All right, before we sign off here, DeBoer, 500 wins, becomes, I believe, the 27th winning coach, or tied for 27th of all time. 15 of those guys have cups. Is this a guy in your just predict, and this is throwing more spaghetti against the wall. Does Peter DeBoer, before he retires, does he have a ring?
It's so hard to win.
It really is.
And just by that standard, I'm going to say no. It's just that hard. But I've seen too many of his teams get close and fizzle. Like it's happened in 3 different cities now.
Yeah. And multiple times in 3 different cities.
And I haven't seen the growth of the team during playoffs to make me believe that he's provided an adaptable enough situation to be able to overcome changes during a series. And boy, that's a critical take on somebody who's 1,000 times better at his job than I would ever be doing it.
But I think it's fair to say that he was outcoached by not only Dom Ducharme, who's the guy that filled in while Ducharme was
Luke Richardson.
Yeah. And then also Bonus in Dallas. And you could even argue Travis Green with Vancouver. I hate saying coaches that, like you said, this guy would be better at his job than anything I'll ever be. But yeah, it's tough to say that. It's harsh when you say somebody was outcoached, but I really do believe he was.
I do too. It's really hard. Like, this analyst job that I do sometimes can be tough. And I mean, these are all our friends here, obviously, but like when I'm criticizing an old teammate of mine, like basically I'm analyzing and criticizing Mike Smith, or even Lehner, who's a friend and old teammate. It's like, you got to be real, it's just reality. And even I think even Pete DeBoer would say, hey, I have yet to make it. I haven't won anything yet. The coaches are aware of that. And I can guarantee that Pete DeBoer is not sitting in there going, this is our way. This is all we're going to do. No chance. They are exhausting everything they can to try to improve. I truly believe that, but it hasn't found the winning combination yet. So
no, and unfortunately, I don't think this is the year for it. I think there's just too many pieces that have to come together. And I keep saying it. If they go on even to make the finals, I think it's a remarkable run. And you got to give DeBoer and the players just incredible amount of credit. But a lot needs to happen. A lot has to happen perfectly for that run to occur. And I don't see it happening.
I don't either. But, I think we'd had this discussion earlier on goalie interference this year, that how it might even be a setup year for next year with Eichel and everything else. And they may need this summer to really figure out their roster and retool again. And I could see them coming back strong again next year if they figure it out. My only worry is, man, if they flame out in the first round, like an epic flame out, I worry about that having major ramifications.
I was going to ask, do you feel a hot seat if that's the case, or will they give him? And I don't even think DeBoer really deserves to be the conversation of being on a hot seat. I think more or less the front office, if they're not able to pull out at least one round win. But it's just, there's too much that has to happen, and I think you just can't blame in a situation like this.
No, I think Pete is very much their guy in a lot of ways. If they miss playoffs here, anything can happen. Anything and everything. Nobody's safe if they miss playoffs. From the general manager on down, anything could happen then. But they'll make playoffs, and they'll go no matter what. I think you look at this year and all this stuff that's happened. I think DeBoer's got a free pass on this year, honestly, almost no matter what, just because it's been so hectic and tough to hang your hat on. It's tough. It'd be tough to can a guy after you miss that many games, like with players and injuries and COVID. I don't think you can do that. I wouldn't feel good about it, honestly. I don't think it'd be right, but
I wouldn't either. I'm confident like you that they're going to make the playoffs, and I know somebody else is. That's Jim Jimerson and the Jimerson Law Firm. We always thank them for sponsoring goalie interference. Mike, you had a nice dinner with Big Jim, and he's a big-time hockey fan.
Is he ever? And we had some consternation when it was a tough day for Jim when the St. Lawrence Skating Saints defeated the Cornell Big Red at Lehner Arena. But no, it's appreciated, man. Jim Jimerson of the Jimerson Law Firm is somebody I really respect, even though he threw newspapers at me in college.
Is that what the Big Red did?
Yep. And warm-ups, when they do the national anthem announce, they shake the newspapers, wad them up, throw them at you on the ice.
Oh, I love that. That's great. Yeah. Well, I think, Mike, you always send us off in something good. What do you got?
Well, I hadn't done any digging. I tell you what, let me look real quick.
Actually, so we can post you have a beautiful St. Louis Browns hat on, right? And I mentioned off air that my grandfather had a cup of coffee with them, and there he is, Roland G. Pothier.
Nice.
Yeah. So I have his glove. Cool. I have his glove from the 40s probably, and he was one of my my childhood heroes. So it's really nice to see that hat on your head.
It's cool. Well, we've got that in common. That's my grandpa was my hero in a lot of ways. Yeah, man, it's cool. It kind of gets me every time I see stuff with my grandpa in a lot of ways, and the impact he had on my life was pretty important. So I'm happy that my girls want to keep playing and doing stuff like that, because it's a continuation of family stuff. It's pretty amazing.
Absolutely.
Oh, here you go.
Oh boy.
Sorry. I thought I had a good one.
Anybody moved or traded? Anybody big names by next week, or you think it's still a week away or 2 weeks away?
I think Claude Giroux is going to go right to the minute and get dealt. I don't think Marc-Andre Fleury is going to get dealt. I talked to another goalie who's in media who was real sure of that as well. I think Brock Besser's interesting. I think he may end up getting traded, not JT Miller. Yeah.
Wow. I mean, what a return that could be.
Besser's due a qualifying offer of 7-something. And you have to make your decision. Is this worth it for us for this player? Do we think he's going to be worth that? And you look at that as opposed to what you have with Miller for one more year at 5.5. So hit the button on this guy here. I got one for you sitting in the queue. We'll go out on this. This here is stand-up goaltending.
Oh! Whoa! What a move!
There you go, folks.
Let's see that one more time. One more time. Oh, so explain the reaction there. How are you getting that?
I don't know, man. It was a pure read. Sometimes it dawns on you that this is where the puck's going. There's no need to drop. Patience, tall torso, all that stuff.
Kind of like you handle this show.
I do my best.
Well, thanks, Mike, and thanks to the Jimerson Law Firm. We'll see you all next week, and don't worry, Ken will be back, so you'll get the back and forth of Mike and Ken yelling at each other, and it's always fun to watch.
I can't wait. Thanks to Jim Jimerson of the Jimerson Law Firm. Ted Drews is better than Mr. Wizards. That's for you, Anthony D. That's a little bit of St. Louis trivia. So until next Wednesday, everybody, Jason, Ken, be good, everyone. See you next week.